Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Small Towns Unscripted. Hi, Jim and Judy Wall. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you.
This is Nicole Turner. This is Tara Kalin. And my name's Russ McClellan. How are you guys?
Good.
We're great.
Well, we've been already talking about stories, so I'm really thrilled and feel very blessed that you guys came today. And I don't know if you've seen any of the episodes that we've done so far or not.
No, you're going to have to tell me how to get on.
We'll do that.
On the
Okay.
episodes.
We'll do that.
Hey, you've been
know.
together 50 years of marriage.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So I'm going to get into that.
All right.
And I just want to, since you haven't seen an episode, what this is all about, Tara and I and Nicole and Desiree, we just started it because, in a small town, you often know of someone, but you don't really know them. Or maybe you knew them at a specific time in high school, or maybe you knew them at an industry, and that's the only way you know them. But everybody has so much more depth to their life than a specific time or what they do for a living. So this is a way for the town to help the town kind of intertwine and get to know each other instead of each other. That's where it all kind of started. So it's a pretty simple premise. We call it unscripted because we don't really have a plan. We just like to meet people and have them tell us their story. And, maybe once in a while we'll ask questions, but, it's really anything goes. Whatever you want to talk about, we're open to talking about it.
I mean, I'm excited because I guess technically we were neighbors for quite a long time. And when you live on the lake, between the lake and the highway with nothing else, you don't really get to know your neighbors.
Oh, really?
Unless they're right next to you, because how are you going to get there?
Well, there's,
I mean, it's
but
not
there was a neighborhood for us,
going up lake,
yes,
but
nothing else.
there's nothing to,
and
down
they
there.
were all boys,
Well, you're talking about your childhood.
yeah.
Yeah, but when you live on the lake, see,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we weren't that far away, and I only knew that they lived there because their kids were on my bus. They were 2 bus stops ahead of me,
Yeah.
So this is great. This is what it's all about.
Well, let's start from the beginning. I see here, you guys, thanks for giving me this, Jim. So did you both, it says here, you graduated high school. Tell me about you guys' childhood growing up.
Well,
Both grew up here in Chelan? Okay.
I grew up in Manson. My folks lived the first house or second house down lake from Wapato Point.
Oh.
So we had ready access to the lake
Beautiful.
and boating, swimming, and had lots of relatives visit in the summertime.
When you live on the lake, you have a lot of friends.
Oh,
Yes.
you sure do. Let me
do.
tell you, I moved to the mountains and I don't have any apparently.
And I went to school in Chelan. At that time, my dad didn't think too much of the Manson School District, and so took us to Chelan and graduated in 1959.
Nice. How'd that, so who were some of your friends that you went to high school with? We might have had
Richard Folletto, Tom Pickett. Probably my best friend was Dick McKellar, and he was a year ahead of me. And Tony Martinson, he was a year behind me.
Yeah.
And eventually Tony married my sister Linda. And it just really wasn't too many close friends in my class.
Yeah, well, back then, especially when, even today, I mean, it's a small town, so when you have class reunions, you often have multi-year class reunions,
Right.
Because 3 or 4 years up and down, you're friends, and
Yes.
What'd
Yeah.
they think about a Manson kid going to Chelan, or did anyone
Uh,
care or comment?
Manson kids didn't think too much. Didn't think it was.
Right, I'll bet.
Yeah, I was kind of a traitor.
I'll bet. Yeah, that's the mentality.
well, politics was alive and well back then too.
Yeah, for sure.
So my dad was in 1952, and my mom was in 1956 from Manson. So just right before you. And then you grew up in Chelan, or did you Manson?
Manson.
So you're a Trojan too.
Yes, and our house was, if you go up out of Manson and take that curve, Dr. Hubbard's house on the corner, if you go down that, dead ends at my house.
I love that right now we're talking about describing where someone lived and
No, that's
Dr. Hubbard's house. Take
that
a
is
right.
exclusively how small towns give directions.
I've shared this before, but in real estate for the last 3.5 decades or something that I've done, I had a couple from Seattle once got all of a sudden furious with me while we were showing property because I had told them that I grew up here. And I know, I'm from here, 3rd generation, 4th generation, whatever. And finally they're like, "You're a liar." And it was because I didn't know any of the street names. Yeah. And they just didn't believe me. And I'm like, literally, this is for everybody.
We didn't even have them when you were in school.
Yeah.
I know.
There were no street signs for me when I was in high school.
Yeah, and if there
And
was, we
it's
didn't
hard.
know. It is hard, yeah.
I don't even know what street I lived on.
That's great.
Wapato Way.
Yeah, that's great. So what year did you graduate high school?
63.
63.
Jerry Bragg and Dinah Peterson. And
I just listed Jerry's house last week.
yeah. Jerry and I grew up because our parents were in the Donkey Club, which
I'm sorry, what?
The Donkey Club.
It's a group of people that play cards,
Oh,
but it's
that's not what I was
also
thinking.
a group of women that made money for the hospital.
Oh, like a guild.
Yeah. So it was dual.
Now, what were the card games of choice back then?
Bridge.
Now, I remember my parents playing
Pinochle, my parents.
pinochle. Yeah, two-person pinochle, where you, and then always getting in fights. Like,
Yeah, it was really aggressive.
It was aggressive, competitive. I told you, I gave you that look. Hearts, not diamonds. What are you talking about, Patty?
Yeah.
Jerry and I were just in diapers when they started this, and we would go from house to house every weekend and play cards.
Oh my gosh.
Sounds
So
like you
Jerry and I became really like a brother and a sister,
Yeah.
and we never dated. And
It's okay if Jim's sitting next to you. You can.
no, but we didn't. but
50
I
years
got
later,
a call.
got something to tell you.
I got a call about
I know most of her secrets.
yeah, he does.
I'll bet.
Leverage is good, Jim. Leverage is
2
good.
months ago, Jerry called me and said, "This is the hardest call I've ever made." And he said, "I'm moving."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I bet that is emotional, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
When you grew up and you've been together all those years, we even asked at graduation if we could walk down the aisle and sit next to each other, and
Wow.
my dad being on the school board said yes, and so
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I feel very honored, when you're working in real estate and people that have such strong roots and they ask you to help them sell something that's been, such a part of their life.
Legacy. It's like selling a limb.
And it's a huge honor, and I take it very, very seriously. And I feel like for our, it's kind of a blessing to be able to, help people transition. It's also kind of challenging because you're bringing a lot of other people here, and so there's this crazy, double-edged sword. We'd all want time to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about your childhood. Like, do you remember? Mainly because my dad told me a lot of stories and my mom told me stories, but I'm always curious. Like Earl Stanford was one of our guests, and we had a great conversation. They were in the same grade. But what was it really? Could you describe what it was like growing up in the 50s in this town, 40s and 50s?
I thought it was pretty calm. You didn't worry about locking your door. You could ride your bicycle anywhere you wanted to go. And I didn't really hear much about gangs or anything like that. It just individuals, and you would go to somebody's house and play for the day, but I don't know. I can't think of anything right offhand that would.
Less stressful, probably. Just
Oh yes.
oh yeah.
Now,
Really.
could you just go run around Wapato Point and
Yes.
Yes.
play?
Yeah.
Yes. There was nothing out there except the pavilion.
He lived
Oh, yeah.
one house on the Chelan side,
Mm-hmm.
on the
and
Chelan side.
I
okay.
was one of the first houses on the Up Lake side of Manson.
So you were in Hyacinth.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
what we called Millionaire Row when we were
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
Now it's multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
It's gotten a
Well,
little
even
expensive.
us, the White House. Look at what that's going for.
So who
That's
were your neighbors?
crazy,
Was
you guys.
Cordell had a house right in there, right in that
Yes.
same.
Yes.
2 doors over.
Yeah, I remember that house going there with Chris and Dave Cordell. They were my age. Dave was a little
And we
bit
had
older.
orchards too. And we still do.
You do?
You still do. Wow.
On Millionaire Road, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
What? Oh my goodness, you guys.
Sally's got an
Yeah, my
orchard.
sister Sally takes care of about 5 acres next to Wapto Point on Hyacinth.
Wow. Those taxes are really low, aren't they?
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
so
thankfully there's houses on front.
yeah.
Probably paying for a
Yeah,
lot of that.
the
Yeah.
lakefront is.
Yeah.
Do you remember the
They're-
dance hall in
Oh, yeah.
Chelan?
Yes.
Tell me about the dance hall.
Oh, she's instigating.
You know his
stories.
secrets.
There's
too.
some stories about the dance hall.
So, Judy, please share.
There you go.
What was that about?
No, well, first of all, I babysat his sisters. And my mom and I was having a date with Jim, and or he would take me home from when I'd babysit, and he came in one night and he asked if he could date me, and my mom and dad said, he's 4 years older.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So anyway, he promised I wouldn't drink or smoke. I was allowed to date him.
It's funny. My mom said the same thing about my dad. You can't be drinking if we're going to date, because he was 5 years older than my mom.
Yeah.
Riding in cars with boys.
Wow.
This
Yeah.
is where it starts. Riding
Well,
in
you
cars
meant-
with boys.
Mention the dance hall. Which one are you talking about?
Well, my dad told me stories that he and the Pittman brothers, and they would go in Friday night or Saturday night in
The one at
Chelan
Safeway.
by Safeway,
Okay.
and then there would be usually
was
some
two.
fights.
Yeah.
And then they would be like, my dad always joked because he wasn't a very big man. He was like 100 pounds in high school.
Yeah.
And they would, like Lowell and Harold were, and some of the other guys were
Yeah.
big farm boys, right?
Right.
Big, strong guys. And they'd be like, they'd put money that my little guy could beat up your little guy. And so all this, he said it was kind of it was so, tribal at the time with all the small towns having some stability in the agricultural businesses. And a lot of pride, generational pride. So they would go in from all over and meet and girls and fights and then they. But it wasn't like, he always described it like it wasn't a evil thing. It was like, I buy you a beer, I pick you up. Next week I'll get you. It was a very different time. So I just was curious.
Yeah,
Well, I remember 3 different dance halls.
I
Oh, wow.
remember
There was the
two.
Masonic Temple
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
that Stuart Moss of Cozy Radio ran those dances. And then there was the Oof Hall that you were just talking about
The Oof Hall. That's
Yeah.
the name of it.
by
Yeah,
Safeway.
it was the
And then the Pavilion by Campbell's, which was, it's not there anymore.
Now, were these mainly high school dances, or were they anybody?
Anybody.
Jim. There was
Mainly high school and college.
I see.
there was the one out in the parking lot of Safeway too. I don't think that was, you named that one.
Oh, I didn't know about that. But just the Oof Hall that
Yeah.
was there by Safeway.
What is Oof? How do you spell that?
IOOF.
IOOF. Yeah, I played on that baseball team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little leaguer.
That was like a club, right? Like
Yeah.
Eagles or something.
It was like a
Kleenex.
lodge.
I don't
Wow.
have it. Kleenex.
There's one. Nicole, clean it.
Oh,
There we go.
Oh,
No, I
bless
don't.
your heart. It's that time
Okay,
of
but
year.
I want to know. Yes, it is. I want to know why you smacked him. Like,
yeah, there's a story.
there's
a
some
few.
dance hall stories or
To
something.
dances? Well, just that my folks, I had to get permission.
Oh,
Was he a
Because
wild
was
man?
4 years. No, he wasn't a wild man. He was very
Did you
nice.
ever pull pranks or anything? Was like back in the day like a prank thing?
Oh, and I'm sure he did when McKellar did,
Yes, Dick McKellar and I did.
but I didn't. I was a good girl.
So that was Scott and Judy's
Yeah.
dad. And Judy married my uncle Mick, my mom's sister Mick Edmonds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
had 2 kids.
And for us, the biggest loss was Dick.
Yeah, I heard he was a nice guy.
He is a cousin to Judy and Dick.
Cousin or dad?
Cousin.
Cousins.
He was a year ahead of Jim at school.
I see.
Jerry and Judy's dad was Everett.
Everett, yeah.
He was a contractor.
Right.
And Dick's father was a pharmacist and worked at Green's Drug for a long time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we just had
To circle back to that.
and we just
right?
had Jim Oscarson
Circle
and
back,
Nancy
me too.
Oscarson and Rick Gavin on. So their episode is actually Rick Gavin, Nancy Oscarson, and Jim Oscarson. Their episode airs on Friday coming up. Yeah, which would have already happened by the time this
My
airs.
grandfather in Wenatchee owned the Owl Drug Store and was a pharmacist.
Really?
Oh, I love that
Wow.
place.
That's still a cute place.
No
So
kidding.
so when you were gone off to college and you were still in high school. So did you guys? You said you've been married now over like 50.
Close to 50.
Close to, in November, it'll be 50.
Wow. Well, what's the secret for that? While we're on that topic, how do you do that?
She's always right.
Oh, yeah, I love a smart man. I really love a smart man.
That isn't fair.
Makes sense though.
I mean, fair or accurate? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think there's a lot of head shaking that goes
I just
on
think
in marriages.
I think we like each other.
That's a
I
good
really,
answer.
I think that's really
Does
important.
it takes work?
This was not my first marriage either.
Mine either.
You
Wow.
guys dated and then married other people.
Yes.
Well, 5 years apart, you know.
And then you got back together.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cute.
I had a rough time and Jim didn't, but that's okay. I got through it.
You had a rough first marriage.
Yeah, I was beaten severely.
Oh my word.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
But even then, I feel like people didn't want to get divorced. I mean, even
You
when it was
don't.
bad.
I was married for 10 years, so.
Yeah. It was hard.
Well,
I think harder than it is now.
So you think about that was coming. Was he older than you? Your first marriage.
Yeah.
So I often think about what it must have been like coming out of World War II in the 40s, and then all of the tragedies and all of the traumatic events that happened, and then the men just were told, "All right, go back to work, be normal.
Yeah. Get married, have a family,
Don't."
work.
Yeah, and then the only counselor was whiskey.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Like
yeah.
there was
and work.
nobody raised their hands and hey, I need some counseling.
And work.
And so I can only imagine the trauma and the craziness that went on with the PTSD. And I don't know. It just seems like to hear it from people that lived through it, you know, and then like I know my dad's second dad, he struggled with some stuff and then he died of cancer. But it was just it probably was a glorious time after World War II, you know, that the war was over and everybody was happy that that's behind us, but the residual had to be pretty traumatic. And then,
It impacted those kids.
yeah, and then you have to, and so often the women paid a price.
Yeah.
You know, whiskey's not a very good counselor right here.
So, okay, so you were married for 10 years. How long were you married?
I was married for 10 years.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
okay. And did you have kids from those marriages?
I did not.
I did. One
Okay.
daughter.
So then how did you reunite?
We met at Roger McKellar's
Oh,
wedding,
that's right. I forgot that.
Roger was Dick's brother.
Okay.
And we met again
And
at the
your
wedding.
first words out of your mouth were,
Who are you?
"Who are you?"
Were you being a smart aleck or did you
No.
mean it?
No, I didn't recognize her.
Get out of here.
No.
You are kidding. I love this. Okay. All right. Okay. So did you smack him then too?
No, no.
Okay.
But she had to tell that story several times
Yeah.
I'll
over a
bet.
period of about 3 years.
I would
Who
too.
are you?
I would
You were
too.
probably so beautiful. He was just like, oh my
Mesmerized.
goodness
Well, look at
sakes.
me now. I'm just homely as
She-
sin.
She
You
changed
are
a lot
not.
from when I saw her.
You're a
high
beautiful,
school.
classy
Yeah.
Well,
lady.
sure, right? I mean, she was just like still kind of a young girl.
I've got all these wrinkles and I just hate them.
Oh, you gotta love them.
You
Come
look-
on now.
Oh,
Every
I've
one
earned
of
them all.
those. Every one of those is
I
earned.
don't even see
For
any wrinkles.
sure. For sure.
But Jim and
Okay.
I think, really like each other. I think that's the secret to us.
And you had kids together.
Because
We have
we're
two together.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie is her daughter, and I adopted her.
Mm-hmm.
And
And then
Steph-
we had Christopher
Christopher and,
and Jamie.
Jamie.
Well, Stephanie reached out to me and told me some stuff. Did
Yeah,
you know?
she's doing some cool stuff.
So
Right?
let's see.
I don't know. She doesn't speak to us.
Oh. Well, she
I'm
speaks-
sad about
she
that.
speaks
That's
to you,
hard.
but not them.
Well, Stephanie said, ask him about the skunk that was thrown in the dance hall in high school.
Forgot about that one.
She said that?
Yeah.
This was at the old high school. And they would have dances on Saturday in the auditorium, which you went in the main entrance and then down into the auditorium. And a lot of us would stand outside by our cars and BS and talk to girls and just do the boy thing. And one day, or one night, this old car pulled up. It was a 48, I believe. It had a big bumper on the back of it, and the two guys jumped out of it. And one of them had on a pair of big, heavy gloves. And I wondered what is going on. And they grabbed the skunk off the
Probably
back
from
of the
Manson,
car
those guys.
and ran up and threw it in the stairs
Oh gosh.
down into the auditorium.
Cleared out the dance hall, I bet.
And it wasn't more than 30 seconds that people were running out of there and vomiting,
No.
excuse me,
Oh
and
my
screaming.
I wasn't
Gosh.
there. I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh. This is like a Stand By Me scene.
Prank. There you go. Did you
Yeah.
ever find out who did it?
Oh yeah, I knew who did it.
No. Okay. Well, who did it 50 or 60 years later?
Yeah, who did it, Joe?
One of them was Gail Clark,
Oh, Gail.
and Jim McClellan, I believe, was the other one.
Imagine there's a McClellan in there.
So it is Manson.
Was Manson deal.
Oh,
That's a
Oh
good
my
prank. Well, that's funny.
that's great.
I love
I bet
everything
those
about
school
that.
pranks go back a long ways. Been a lot of
Oh,
them.
Home of the Rubbers is
Yeah.
what was burnt on our
Football
football field
field.
the year I moved to Manson
Yeah.
in gasoline.
That happened to me when I
Always
was a senior
playing
too.
the piano somewhere.
That was the year you moved, probably.
88.
Yeah, so in '87 it happened to our football season. They put
Well, still there when I came.
rubbers in the football field. Trojans or
Manson
condoms.
or Chelan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Manson's
Chelan
Chelan
did it.
boys.
Yeah.
And then I ended up rooming in college with one of those guys that did that.
You did?
Yeah.
Who did it?
I think it was Lee and
Don't say I think. You know.
John. No, they're still alive. I can't-
So?
Do you have very many left in your class?
Yeah, quite a few. I graduated in '87, so we've
We've
lost
got two.
we've lost Kathy Korsborn, passed away.
Oh, yeah.
She had cancer.
We had
13 and 13.
13 and 13, and now we have 4 guys and we have 10 women
Left.
left.
Yeah, it's hard when you lose your friends because you are like, that. I had 22 and 16 of us were kindergarten, I think, through 12th grade. So we were like brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
It's hard when they pass away. They're close forever.
like Jerry and I, we're like brother and sister.
Yeah.
We never dated ever, never had a date, but we just
Well, Desiree was here. I tried to date her once, and she said I was the cockiest kid she's ever met in her life, and she never dated me again. Because we grew up next door to each other a year apart, and I thought she was a boy till she was like 12.
What's so cool about her is that everything I hear, I love her even more.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
we
some
were-
things he shouldn't advertise as much, but he keeps doing it.
I know.
No, it's
It's shameless. So that's kind of endearing.
it kept me humble the rest of my life.
Oh, it did?
Of course.
That was the first humbling experience.
I
It
think
just
we
took
need to
18.
define what humble means.
I was gonna say, who there believes that? Here.
No, nobody.
Wow.
That's his version of humble. That was
Yeah.
started at 18. That was the one and done.
Paul Singleton grew up next door to me on the Manson side. And then it was Hubbard's up on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where Singleton Park gets its name?
No.
No. He was, I don't even know what his dad did, but he was a salesman of some sort. And he traveled, and he was a only child.
Oh.
And so he was 2 years behind me in school. And I can't find him now. I've been looking for him, but I can't find him.
So when you guys got back together, what did you guys do for work?
Go.
You were in a bank.
I was banking, but I've had 3 really good careers. Go ahead.
I was an apple orchardist in Howard Flat area.
Oh, nice.
Had 2 different tracks out there.
Near Peterson's?
One of them was before Peterson's, just before you get to the ice caves.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Peterson's on the other side of that.
And Marion Peebles had a place, they said.
Yeah, Marion had one over on Howard Flat Road. And I had a 20-acre block. I think there was one orchard in between us.
That's before you got into politics.
Yes.
And the PUD. And I want to get into that story about how the PUD got started.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you have a career, though? What was your...
What did you
my
do?
careers were, I was really active in guilds and raising money for, things that needed money. And so I was lucky enough to get a phone call from, I never can remember his name,
Booth Gardner.
Booth Gardner.
Oh, what a great man.
Yeah.
Great man.
And he said, you've got a job starting Monday. Start reading. I said, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And he said, you are going to be a judge on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what? And anyway, I became an administrative law judge, and I participated in that for 16 years.
That is
Administrative law judge.
honestly so cool.
Yeah.
That is
Explain that to me.
such an honor. Wow.
Yeah.
How does that work? What is that?
It's an appointment from mostly from the Senate or whatever. And I was appointed by Booth, and then Gary Locke, and then one other
Governor.
person.
So you're interpreting administrative ruling?
Growth management, you'll hate it.
Growth Management Act, yeah. That was 1996, roughly. Yeah, I remember that. It was when John Wall, is that your...
No
relative.
So John Wall was a county commissioner when,
Right.
when that was going in, and that was a big deal. That they were saying it was
and
unconstitutional.
everybody hated us because they
you were
didn't
part
like
of it.
But I took a different role. I took it, and I think that's why I lasted so long, because there were 3 people on. You had to have a joint decision, but I looked at people like you in the room and said, have you ever talked to each other?
Right.
I mean, I just said it, you know,
Yeah.
clear. Do any of you talk to each other?
Right.
Like the county commissioners and they said no.
Yeah.
And I said, try it. It works.
What a concept.
Like what we're doing this podcast for. You knew of each other, but you didn't talk to each other. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I was that. So I had what was it there?
Banking.
Banking, and I don't know what else I did.
Piano.
Oh yeah, I taught piano for 22 years. So.
That is honestly a very hard thing to do. My son is 8 and he's in piano lessons, and I have a huge respect for piano teachers now. I feel like getting a kid to pay attention for a half an hour is tough. I mean, tough.
It seems like everybody had a piano back then. We had a piano in our basement.
Did you take piano lessons?
I've played the hell out of Mary Had a Little Lamb once.
Yeah, you
It's
And a
hard.
saxophone.
You taught underprivileged girls too.
Yes, I did. I worked with girls that were at I can't even remember the
I don't remember the school.
school down by Elma.
Oh.
I took 8 girls and taught them. They were in high school, and they just everybody wanted to take piano because they got out of the classroom.
Yeah.
But I started piano at age 4,
Wow.
and my mom I broke my mother's heart. So I didn't become become a concert pianist.
Well, I think most of us can state pretty clearly that we've let our parents down, and I think that that's perfectly okay. I think that's what we're kind of supposed to do, and hopefully generationally as we move forward we stop putting that pressure on our kids.
But I had to play the piano for everybody. It was just,
Yes.
Judy, get to
Pressure.
I
And then
never
the
got
thing-
to sing. I actually flunked choir my senior year
That's fun.
because I said I'm not going to play the piano this year. I'm going to sing.
They applied pressure to you. That's funny.
Well, parents have this way, and I don't think it's the intention, but it's the result of squashing kids' joy by taking the thing they enjoy and ruining it by turning it into work.
It's interesting. I have a partner in business that he's 32. He's one of the smartest guys I know, but he was a classical pianist. Since he was 4 years old, he full ride at Whitworth and then Washington State, and now he won't play. Very, very. I've only heard him twice, because in his mind, he was playing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Seemed like he was obsessed, and in his mind, he's not any good. Now, to the rest of us, he can sit down and he's amazing, but he's such a
To his
perfectionist.
ear, yeah.
He's such a perfectionist that unless he can play at the level that when he was playing 8 hours a day, he said he was trying to explain to me, you don't understand, because you're not in that game, how different what I hear versus what you hear. Like it's massively
and I
different.
had a mini stroke, and lost piano went
Oh really?
south.
Wow.
Like the part of your brain that,
Wow.
oh, that's kind of sad.
And that is sad, because I miss it. I had a baby grand and played a lot.
Though, that to me is parallel what you're saying about him and the piano to you saying that you're not beautiful because of your wrinkles. Because I think if you saw what we saw, you're very
You're
beautiful.
gorgeous, classy,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And my friend,
Thank
it's a
you.
funny story about how he doesn't play, but I got him drunk enough in Las Vegas at the New York Dueling Piano Bar, and I went there. I went there
that's
early,
deep.
and I bribed everybody that worked there to, at the perfect time when I had just enough alcohol in him, that I got him to sit down. And he went crazy. He played
Cool.
the whole place erupted. He was so good.
Yes.
And then finally, one of the guys, the bouncer, that kind of had to give him some money to let us in. The first, I had like 5, 6 guys I had to bribe to get this done. But I knew this was the only chance he's going to play for me. He's playing one-handed. Finally, the guy goes, he's so good, you should get him off the piano. My guys are getting upset, like the real piano players.
The paid ones.
And then he's like, I was horrible. I'm like, the whole bar was like in love with you.
They were kicking you out because you were too good. You were making the performers look bad.
That's to your point. Like in his mind, though.
In our own minds.
And he was like, I can't believe you
so
did that to
tough
me.
on ourselves.
Well, I took piano lessons too when I was in junior high, and started out with Beth Baker, and then graduated to Carlton Pettit,
Oh goodness.
and took from him for, I don't know, a year or so. And my mother was always hounding me to practice after school when I got home. And like you were saying, I wanted to go out and play and do something else. not play the piano. And finally, Carlton told my dad that he was wasting his money and Carlton's time. So I didn't take any more piano lessons.
Yeah, I'm constantly asking my son, if you don't want to do this, let's just get rid of the piano. I mean, it's supposed to be enriching, but fun. And, you want to do something that you love. So if you're not loving this, then, we can take a break.
That's a great attitude.
We can try something out. We can maybe, take a couple months off, see if you miss it. And I'm not trying to ruin his life over a piano lesson. I just don't think it's worth it.
I used to have neighbors call and thank them for having the door open to our outside area so that they could hear me play.
I bet you're
that's
amazing.
cool.
Lovely.
But
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore.
Well, let's talk about
Jim.
Let's talk about how you were a PUD commissioner for 3 terms.
Correct.
Let's talk about how the PUD got formed. You had mentioned Judy earlier.
Yeah, my grandfather would go down to the White House, our old house, and try to talk him into letting the PUD be the PUD. And my grandfather was Mac McKenzie, and he got Harry to be the swing vote in the Senate, and that's how.
Because Harry was who?
My
Harry-
grandfather.
Your grandfather.
He
Yeah,
lived in the White
our
House.
two grandfathers
We used to live there.
got it together.
Wow.
So he was in Congress, in the state Congress.
Right.
Yeah, he was a state senator.
Did he build that house?
No.
No,
Oh,
it was built by the Beidlers.
that's an old
Beidler.
house.
Beidler, they were, Steve Beidler used to have a mobile home sales in Wenatchee. It was
As
Star
you came
Motors.
into Wenatchee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was his folks lived there. And then my grandfather bought it in, what did Linda say, 33,
Yeah.
Jeez.
and built the existing house.
Okay.
And then after we moved out, the various owners have remodeled it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually met a couple. The one that put up the big white Adirondack chair.
Yeah.
Yes, the Winds.
Yeah, the Winds. They used to come shop at my store,
Mm.
and I think they did quite an extensive
Inside, yes.
Inside they did.
remodel.
Back when you lived there, did everybody pretty much know each other?
Mm-hmm.
Like Dick Finley was my uncle on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
It's one house in.
I've known Dick Finley all my life.
Dick and Nadine, yeah.
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 And Nadine was my dad's sister.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew him from the ski club.
Oh, the ski club.
I just remember they had white carpet that I could never. I had to take my shoes off all the time.
Oh, you know what I didn't say in the Gavin interview? Was that the one thing that I'll never forget going to Gavin's house was that Gay was very particular about the living room. I mean, I think that was a pretty big thing that people had a room that like the kids could not
Yeah,
ruin.
white carpet.
So that there was
no
always,
kids.
I think it was maybe light blue or gray, something like that, but she'd know because there were vacuum lines.
Oh, that weren't disturbed yet?
Yeah. So it was like, don't even think about walking that way. You know what I mean? You're going to get busted.
So you were naturally blessed to be in the PUD since your grandfather helped create it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a staunch Republican, and at that time, Washington Water Power was here, which was an investor-owned utility. And her grandfather was lobbying him to support the fact that the legislature, well, I guess there was an initiative. The Grange filed initiative number 1 to allow public power in the state. And my grandfather did somehow got into being able to authorized the Chelan PUD. I'm not sure exactly how it came about.
So the hydroelectric dams, there were dams
Yeah.
built.
Yes.
There have been many dams over the years
Right.
at the end of this lake.
There was 2 at that time. It was Lake Chelan and Rock Island.
I see.
But it was neat because then my grandfather became one of the first original PUD commissioners.
Yeah. Wow. What number in the PUD commissioner were you? Like how many?
Oh, I don't even know.
Oh,
Is that 4-year terms?
I started out with a 4-year term,
Mm-hmm.
and then Bob McDougall had the 6-year term for this area, and he decided not to run again. So I moved over to that position, which was 6 years. And the PUD had changed from a 3-year commission to a 5-year commission. So that came up by having 2 positions at 4 years and 3 positions at 6 years. 2 positions came up every 2 years. So when I got on the 6-year term, I had 3 of those, but I had 1 4-year term for a total of 22.
Wow.
You actually had another commissioner named Dexter.
No.
So what were the biggest, in your career, when you look back, what were the most controversial things, or what was the challenge, the hardest thing to do when you were a commissioner?
PUD parks, authorizing the building of those parks, and the condemning of private property to build the parks.
Oh, yeah.
i.e. Riverwalk.
Yeah.
Yes.
That seems like a killer.
I had
deal.
a Faye
get
Yetter
through.
had a house there that was
Yes.
Kelly's
she
lived there
she was
too.
upset.
Yeah.
That was-
Kelly's.
Kelly's.
Yeah, that's a
Yetters.
challenge.
You know, you mentioned Yetters.
Yeah, Yetter, yeah.
You know, those
Larry
families have
Yetter.
a lot of fond memories
Yes.
growing up there.
And it was one other house there. I can't think of her name, but
Yeah, we've been blessed with, the least expensive electricity in the nation for
yes.
Yeah.
a long time.
We'd
Yeah.
always tell our kids to check how much you're paying for PUD. How much, Chris lives in, they all live in Washington, but Chris is in Kashmir and Jamie's in Omak and Stephanie is in Chelan, but it's still, they're very lucky.
Yeah.
All 3 places have low rates.
Yeah, and those parks are very important.
Yeah.
We have very little access to the lake, and I think if without those parks, we'd have obviously less. And this is a tough lake for public
It
access.
really is. It's sad, actually.
Yeah, that's some big vision. I mean, big foresight to be a part of something that permanent. I mean, that's a legacy for
Yeah.
sure. Thank you for that.
It was a big controversy in the Wenatchee area too for the Riverfront Park down there.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that today, this morning, before you were planning to come here, because I was thinking, I wonder if I'm still on the Marine Patrol.
I don't know.
I never got fired. Everybody else got fired but me. And I called them and said, why am I still on the Marine Patrol? We need to know where locations are. But they've never called me. And
That's
I
fun.
still have my uniform.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
Got a gun?
Yeah.
Let's do
I've
it.
got several.
Perfect.
Love it.
Another big controversy with the PUD was, I think it was around, was it 95? We had a real bad drought, and the Northwest was facing a real power shortage, and the state government told us to maximize any generation that we could. So the Chelan PUD went out and bought some diesel generators. And as soon as we got them operational, we had to go through quite a thrash with the Department of Ecology
I was just going to ask you that.
Imagine
Yep.
that.
because they needed to have catalytic converters on them. And so we fought through that, and got permission to put them in. And then we got them ready to run, and the state government says, no, we don't need them, surplus them.
Wow.
So when we paid like $25,000 per generator, we couldn't sell them for more than like $5,000 for the whole bunch.
Wow.
So we took a lot of heat over that.
Well, those could be charging Teslas right now.
Yes,
I remember,
could be.
wasn't it, tell me if I'm wrong, mitigation enhancement. Wasn't that a terminology that was used for the relicensing of the power company? And
Right.
if I remember right, there was a 20-year relicense, and then there was the next one was a 50-year relicense, and that's where the trunk line of the fiber optic benefit from Wenatchee to Chelan was part of the mitigation enhancement to mitigate further licensing of the affected people, including the tribes and the cities. And I think at the time wasn't Eniat like kind of upset, and there was a potential lawsuit with the PUD with the city of Eniat.
Well, Eniat was upset when they raised the Rocky Reach pool and they moved the city, because a lot of the people in the school district took their money and left the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so this school district was short of funds. And so when we were planning on rebuilding the Eniat Park, we went to the community and asked for suggestions. And we got a whole bunch of them.
You got an earful?
Yeah.
Imagine.
Or
And
any
it all
of them
reverted,
good.
a lot of it reverted back to the fact that we had raised the pool and moved the town. But they, I think what they got was a great improvement in what the city park was before.
It was a beautiful park down
It
there.
is
Yeah.
beautiful. That's great bathrooms.
And that's all based on the concept of this federal relicensing.
Yes, that's part of what they call the benefit of hydropower.
Right. So anybody that was impacted, any communities, municipalities, tribal, anybody, you have
Right.
to make them happy, and then you have to get everyone on board before you go forward.
Right, that included
That's amazing.
all the government agencies.
Wow.
Like on Lake Chelan, we had, I think, 20-some agencies and tribes that we had to deal with.
I'm curious about this, Jim, because I go home to my wife, and sometimes I verbally process what's going on, and she's like, I've kind of had enough of that. Like, I don't want to hear it. Did you have that ability to come home and communicate all these things? Because you must have had meetings where you're just like, what in the hell are these people talking about? What are they smoking? I mean, from all these governmental agencies and all these different perspectives in one PUD to make everyone happy.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be a very challenging, psychologically challenging, all the judgment and all the bleacher seat, armchair quarterbacks. And
Again, it's anybody talking to each other.
yeah, to your point. Could you have a conversation about this, or are you just making assumptions?
Yeah.
Well, the PUD commissioners never had a discussion with more than two of us at one time because of, I can't think of the,
Well, there's a
The
certain
law
law.
that-
Don't want to create a
Yeah.
conflict of interest of some kind.
yeah, conflict. But anyway, on a personal note, I didn't really talk to anybody about it.
You had pretty thick skin, I would imagine, in politics.
You have to.
Yeah. What's the trick for that? Just kind of like let it go in one ear and out the other? Or?
You get by yourself, you do a lot of yelling and screaming.
I knew there was some verbal processing that had to happen.
By yourself, he said. By yourself.
I'm
When
learning.
you're out pruning,
I'm learning. When you're out pruning.
There you go.
I get it.
Still gotta have a small orchard just so you got
mowing
something
the
to
orchard.
do. Yep.
Yeah. Tractor's loud. Nobody can hear you.
I had a sounding board too at one sometimes on some issues, and that was Sidney Burns that worked for me.
Sidney Burns. Was that? I'm thinking of Sid Breaker. That was my
No.
aunt's dad. Sidney Burns. Who was Sidney Burns?
Okay, he lived up on Sword Out
He lived
in the McFadden house.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Old
And
McFadden house.
he started working for my grandfather at the sawmill. And at the end of the season, when everybody got laid off because of the winter, he left for Missouri. And he got back there and he called my grandfather and he said, if I could have my job back, I'll never leave again. And he said, okay.
He found out why wagons went west.
Yeah.
Yeah, not east.
So Sidney came back and he worked for my dad, for my grandfather and my dad, and they worked for me. And he retired
Oh, wow.
working for me.
Sounds like a good man.
He was very loyal.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story. That sawmill has
And he-
employed a lot of people.
He
Yeah,
did.
sounds like it.
That Mill Bay sawmill we're talking
Yeah.
about, right?
He was,
He also was a good person to let me know what the gossip was, because he went
To the
to the
tavern.
Apple Cup every morning.
Apple Cup.
There you go.
Yeah, the tavern or the Apple Cup.
Yeah,
So you went to, let me get back to your college. So you went to Wenatchee Valley,
right,
then Kinman Business College,
right,
then Cannon School of Business in Honolulu.
right. No, Kidman was in Spokane.
Kinman was in Spokane. That was 1960 and 61.
Yeah,
Then 1961 to 64, Cannon School of Business. So you went from Spokane to Honolulu.
right.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
well, it's free.
Was I
Rent was free.
Rent was
I-
free.
colder than hell in Spokane in the wintertime.
Yeah, right.
And I was sitting there one day doing my homework, and I'm thinking how cold it is. And I remembered my folks had a condo in Honolulu, in Waikiki, and they went over there every winter, and they didn't rent it out; they kept it for themselves. So I thought, well, why can't I go over there and stay in that condo and go to a business school in Honolulu?
Yeah.
So I located a school there, and
Nice.
they would accept my credits from Kinman, so I transferred.
Perfect. Did you have a
Did you
good
tell them that you're doing it?
Yeah,
Okay.
So you were there for 3 years, 4
Yeah.
years. Did you have a good time?
yes.
Learn to surf?
I was only there during the winter because I came home and worked in the office at the mill during the summer and winter or fall, and then went back over there in the winter.
In 1983. So in 1971 to 2001, you were the owner manager of J&G Wall Orchards.
Right, Jim and George.
Excuse me. Yeah. And you still own the orchard. You still have orchard.
No.
Oh, you,
I got out of the orchard business in 2001.
yeah, it's probably smart.
I got to the point where it wasn't, I couldn't continue to finance it.
Yeah, it was tough.
I suffered from the LR problem in
Yep.
'88.
Mhm.
Never really covered from that. Tried to replant some new varieties, and I just couldn't get the production going fast enough to
Yeah, it
make
was
the mortgage payments.
yeah, it's a vicious cycle. That was,
Yeah.
We've
It
talked
was.
about that.
And I finally gave up.
So what I don't know, which says to the present day, from 1985 to the present day, you are the president of Okanagan Petroleum
Correct.
Limited Partnership, right?
Right.
And what is that?
Yeah.
That was an oil and gas company in Calgary, Canada, that my grandfather and my father and I think Floyd Williams and possibly I think Fred Melbourne was involved in that also. And one other person that I can't remember who it was, maybe two. But my grandfather got, through his political connections, got word that there was oil development going in the Calgary area. It was called Drumheller. It was a new discovery. And so they were able to form a company, and they were able to buy an interest into this drumheller field.
Wow.
And that produced for over 20 years, and it was starting to run dry, and also that it was purchased by a bigger company from the original owners, and they were putting the squeeze on us little company. And finally they just shut down the field. So then we worked with another company that was called Remington Energy, and it was also a public company, but it was run by a fella that was started from scratch up there and developed oil wells. He and my dad had the same personality, so they got along great. And we were doing very well with them. And then they got bought out by
So is the world of
by a large company, because all of a sudden there was a down recession in the oil industry in Canada, and the bank pulled their financing. Even though they were a viable company, the bank just yanked their financing. So when they got bought out, then we had to sell out too. So our company is no longer in business.
Okay. That was quite an adventure.
It was.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes to show how diversification, you know, I mean, these are a lot of hands that you've got or buckets that you got your hands in.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is just when something comes to an end, it comes to an end, and it's okay to let it go. And that's hard to do. I mean, because you fall in love with that in which you love, or you've invested a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears, and then market conditions change, finance conditions change, and you have to redefine yourself and reinvent yourself. Right. And I think that when you're in entrepreneurship, when you have that spirit, that's one of the hardest things to do, because it's such an obsession to get anything successful that it's also hard to say, okay, well, that's the end of that era. Mm-hmm. And now I got to go move over here and do it again. Well, it's also
a harsh reminder of how little we are in control.
Yeah.
It was
we like to think we are.
Harder for me to sell the orchard.
Mm-hmm.
I was more depressed over that than I was selling the house.
Yeah.
Really?
Because
that's interesting.
I had a lot of sweat and tears into the orchard.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah, the transition, it's easy to talk about it. Oh, well, the apple industry went away, and but if you were there and you've been in it, and I grew up on a 10-acre apple orchard that raised 3 kids back when that was a thing that could be done, and you can't dwell on it. I mean, because you have to move on, and you have to fight again the next day. And so many people are still hanging on, but it's becoming, the people that are doing it now, hats off to them. I don't know how they do it. It's fascinating they've made it this long.
Yeah.
Because it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge.
And I held 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Most of that time, teaching piano, or and also.
What bank did you work with? You said you were in banking.
Seafirst.
So did you work with my mom?
Yeah.
At Seafirst. She was there 25 years. And Earlene Jackson, I remember, worked there. And
I'm also in Guild with her.
Phyllis Eli.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Were you in Guild B?
No, I'm in Guild Y.
Y. My mom was in one of those guilds.
My mom was Guild. That was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I did. I did the at-home stuff and the administrative law things, because it would be, I didn't know from one day to the next where my hearings were, because I had all of Eastern Washington. So I traveled.
You had to go. Oh, no Zoom meetings for you.
Yeah.
No. No.
Yeah.
So it was hard, because my kids, it's hard for me to hear them say, we missed you. I guess because I didn't think about it the way they did. I thought about it the way that I was supplying the financial support.
Sure.
And Jim was the dad, running an orchard and doing that. And
The house father,
right, and
house husband, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
but anyway, it was just hard because my kids said we missed our mom. We needed mom.
Well, that's
Yeah,
part of growing up, right? There's no perfection.
Yeah.
No, but you know, that is to be a woman, to be a mom, to be working. I mean, that
That hurt. That I'll tell you, it hurt.
it does, and there's a lot to be said about the force of nature. I mean, there's plenty of nurture that can come from the dad and
Oh,
other, you know, people. It takes a village for sure, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of the nature portion where there's that mother-child connection, and it's you can't replace it. It's just, I mean, it's fine. We all have to do what we have to do, but there is no substitute that is equal, in my opinion.
And I'm adopted, so it's even worse.
My son's adopted too.
Yeah.
Were you adopted as a baby or?
And Jim was my brother. Was also adopted.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
He's not my real brother. He'd passed. I don't know if you knew that. He passed about 4 months ago
Oh,
now.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
really? We talked about him before we started, but I remember Jim McKenzie having a very fast boat that had a very large rooster tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He always had the fastest boat.
He always had
On the lake.
like it was brown too, if I remember right. And he was always a nice guy, always very pleasant and nice. And I kind of remember
I'm
him
not
and
going there.
She's not going to say anything.
it was
about
Buddy
the deceased.
McClellan
Yeah.
and Neil, and they had a good time.
Jim was mean to me. My
no.
mom, my mom and dad put me in the front seat of the car because he hit me all the time.
Oh, jeez.
And
Oh gosh, big brothers.
and yeah, and the bad part about it is that I had open heart surgery, and they didn't believe that I've never smoked. I've never smoked one cigarette in my life, and I'm 90 and
80.
80.
Quit
I
trying
don't
to
know.
age yourself.
He just gained 10 years just like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just sad because I can't. The doctors in Seattle weren't even going to do surgery on on me.
When did you have that? When you were little, or?
No, I had
2001.
2001. Yeah.
And why did they think that you smoked? Because everything was
Because
so.
all the smoke of my parents,
Secondhand
Smoke.
smoke.
secondhand smoke,
That's-
came
Yeah,
from
that's
both sides
that's
of
legit.
of
Back
me
in the day,
car.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, but
Airplanes.
even if
Cars
you
in
talk
the
to
house.
older people that worked for the fire department, third-hand smoke. That's why now they have to leave their gear at the firehouse because they used to bring their gear home and
Right.
take it off and hang it up, and there was third-hand smoke damage.
Wow.
So second-hand smoke, I mean, yeah, that's a real thing.
But they did surgery and everything's fine. But it's just the idea.
I think you need to tell him about being adopted.
Yeah, I love this. I love
Oh.
the adoption stories. This is my jam.
Why don't you tell them?
Well, it's not my story.
I was born on a bus
I'm sorry.
between Hanford and Yakima.
Yakima.
Like a
Whoops-a-daisy. You weren't supposed to come then, or what?
So when
I
you s-
just came when I was supposed to, but my mother was.
so which city do you pick? Do you be like mile marker? I was born at mile marker.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
my mother gave me up for adoption, so
When you say where were you born, do you say Hanford or
I
Yakima?
don't.
Just a bus.
she just
I'm
says
a
the bus.
Just the
Just
bus.
the bus.
The
I'm a
bus
bus
is the bus
baby.
is the
The
town.
bus driver delivered her.
Oh,
my
my
goodness.
gosh.
And I met them.
Later?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
He took them home.
Yeah, to his wife.
After you
Yeah.
had the baby. That's funny.
And I was working in Yakima at that time. My office was Yakima for the administrative law job.
Okay.
And so it was a riot.
Well, you look for their name in the phone book.
And it was right there.
And so she called, and this woman answered, and Judy asked for her husband. And there's a big silence.
Oh gosh, why are you calling my husband?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Could
so
be
Judy
anything.
told him that she was
The bus baby.
bus baby.
And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh my God!" She just started crying.
Oh.
And so she said, "Can you come and meet me?" And I said, "When would you like me there?" And she said, "Now."
I don't want to wait. I want to see my bus baby.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
So anyway, I went to her house, and we've been connected, and her children and I have been connected.
That is so awesome. Okay, so your adopted parents, who are your parents, they could not have children, or they had other children?
They couldn't have children.
That's me too. Okay, I love this. Yep, I can relate. So they were
I
pumped
hadn't even thought of that in years.
that you're a bus baby?
Yeah. I've
She has
written
a
about-
newspaper article too.
Oh,
Sid Morrison helped me pick out the name of my book. It's Born on a Bus, but with a
But
yeah, but with a bus driver or something.
no, I was born on a bus with a butler. So
With a butler. Yes. Born on a bus, but with a butler, because the Butler family was driving the bus.
oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
And this
cute.
is your book that you're writing right
Yeah.
now? Right. All right. Cool. Well, do you guys have any, like, when you look back at your life, do you have any, what is your fondest memory of when you think about your life growing up here together?
The most nostalgic.
Mine was being able to go down to the lake and jump in the boat and just, I had a little, I called it a tin pot. It was a 12-foot aluminum boat with an outboard motor on it, and I could just cruise around the lake as long as I told my mother where I was going.
Oh my gosh.
I had free
Amen to
range.
that.
Probably caught a lot of
Amen
fish
to
out of
that.
that boat, didn't
Yeah.
you? There's another thing that you were a pilot,
Yes,
a commercial pilot.
yes.
Oh, really?
So did you fly
That-
for airlines or for?
No, after the sawmill burned in 1969, I saw an ad in the Wenatchee paper for pilot school, flight school, and that if you graduated, they would get you a job. So this is my opportunity. I always wanted to fly. And I'd talked to Ernie Gibson one time about taking lessons, but he said that he didn't do that anymore because the insurance.
And Ernie would fly from Chelan to Stehekin.
Stehekin, yeah.
My dad said he flew with him and he'd go to sleep and then he'd wake
Yeah.
up.
Oh, that's charming.
He
That,
faked it,
that was
I
the
think.
story, yeah.
Yeah, that was a story.
But I started out
He
in
and
flight
Uncle
school
Don.
in Wenatchee. It was located at Pangborn. And I got my private pilot license and got my commercial, got twin engine rating, and I got my instrument instruction and instrument rating, and able to be an instructor also. And then the school eventually moved up to Fancher Field. And at that time it was when the Airco had fire bombers, two fire bombers out of Wenatchee, and I got to meet the pilots up there, and they moved the planes down to Pangborn when the fire season would start, because that's where the Forest Service would reload the borate. And so one summer when I was doing flight instruction, I got to meet one of the pilots and got to be good friends with him. And the next season, he was going to need a co-pilot.
Next fire season.
Yes. So when the fire season came around, I called him and he said, "Sure, I'll hire you." So I got to fly co-pilot on the twin engine bomber.
Wow.
Wow. So where was your range of fires that you were dropping on?
Anywhere in the Northwest.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Mainly it was around Washington And sometimes we went into Oregon, but mainly it was in Washington.
Okay.
And we flew out of Pangborn. Once we got sent up to Omak, a big fire was going up there, and we worked out of that airport for 2 days.
But you had some exhilarating times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was there some close calls that you can remember? Or you guys
Not really.
pretty careful?
There was some times that, well, the first time we went out, there was a fire up in the icicle above Leavenworth. And the bomber would ride the thermals from the mountains going up there to get up to altitude
Wow.
that we needed to be at to drop. And we came around and came down over a lake, and over the end of that lake was where the fire was, and we needed to make the drop. Well, we came down there, and the pilot pushed the button for the doors. They didn't open,
Oh, you're heavy.
boy.
and we're real heavy, so we're trying to climb back out of this valley.
Oh.
And we went way down the valley before we could get back up to altitude.
Yeah. Yikes.
And he said the doors operated over, they were electric over hydraulic. They had hydraulic doors with electric sensors. And he says, when I yell at you, you pull the valves. So I'm back there
Right.
jumping around, and he yelled at me, and the doors opened up. And
You didn't fall out, did you?
no,
That's good.
that's the first time.
Well, you're looking at them, so.
Yeah. First time I was on a bombing run.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
so here's a hot button topic that we've touched
No
on.
pun intended.
Maybe it was intended. That we've touched on a little bit with some people, but how have you seen fighting fires change since you were doing that?
Yes. A lot more helicopters using water
Yeah.
and not dropping the retardant where we used to drop it.
Oh.
More concerned about the ecological effects of the retardant.
Then stopping it.
Then stopping it.
Yeah.
Do you
We
have
used to drop it to stop the advance of the fire,
correct.
but now they seem to be just letting the fire burn.
Protecting structures is a
Yes.
big deal now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're doing it well. And up Lake, for instance, our property is 3 miles down from Stehekin, but
Had a rough year last year.
yeah,
Mhm.
but they've saved our
The firemen
house
saved it.
5 times.
They did a burn around it.
Good for them. I mean, they're amazing people.
Yeah.
So you've been going to Stehekin for a long time. Have you?
As much as we can.
Yeah, it's still as it's one of those places, right? It just seems to like never age. It just stays the same.
Do you remember where Uncle Don was? Okay.
If I do.
Riddle Creek.
Riddle
Riddle
Creek.
Creek.
And it's torn down now, but we're right across the lake from Riddle Creek.
Beautiful.
Are
up
you
there.
close to Lumens?
Yes.
Okay.
We're down lake from Lumens.
Oh, okay.
The Flick Creek campground is between us. There's Lumens, then the McKellar cabin,
Yep.
and then the campground, and then our place.
Well,
Ours
there's
is,
a new cabin too.
no, that's on the other side of us.
Oh, okay.
But it's a mobile home with a large snow roof over it.
Did you hear that we just got a sheriff in Stehekin?
Just the
No.
car, just
No.
the car, right?
Just the car.
Well,
Just the car.
The
It's
car so that a deputy can go there.
Can go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's a big
cool.
deal.
Well, they had a car
I mean,
there
it's not
before.
just a car that comes with a human once in a while.
Once in a
It's
while.
neat when needed.
When needed.
Yeah.
They
Hopefully
had a
it's not
car
needed too
there
much.
in the 60s.
Yeah.
With a dummy in it. I've seen that on
Yeah.
road trips.
Slow down.
One of those old big cruisers they used to have.
Yeah, like what's that show with Opie? Why can't I think?
Andy Griffith Show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jamie was upset because she wanted to see her dad fly, and hadn't gotten to ever see him fly.
She wasn't even a twinkle in my eye.
Yeah, and so I called her one afternoon and I said, turn on channel blah, 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 blah. And Dad's flying on TV. The Aniant fire.
Oh.
And
1970.
yeah.
All the big fires around here.
And so I said, turn on TV and watch. Your dad is flying.
Oh wow, that's
And
neat.
you'll see him flying.
Yeah, that's great.
So it was cool.
It was a film that was narrated by Lauren Green.
Oh wow.
I can't remember the name of it now, but it was all about the firefighting around this area at
Documentary.
that time. Yeah, documentary.
You know who's a good friend, was one of my dad's best friends, was George Schultz.
Yeah.
He came to my dad's funeral in 2020, and Marilyn was my mom's best friend, and they graduated in 1952 together. But
Yeah.
I don't know how old George is now, but I think in his 80s. And I said, "What are you doing, George?" He goes, "I went and got my pilot's license back." And I
Yeah.
go, "You're going flying?" He goes, "Why not? You got to die something." And I said, "Hey, George, you remember, there's old pilots and there's bold pilots, but there's not a lot of old, bold pilots."
You know, what I love is that I've known of you guys, since I moved here in the 80s. But it really sounds to me, after talking to you, that you have given so much of your time and your energy to this valley and surrounding areas. I mean, from
That's great.
fighting fires to the parks to, you've touched on all these different important things for all of us. And I just want to thank you and commend you for that, because time and service
Well, if it
is
wasn't
a
for,
gift.
that's a
It's
great
a
point,
gift.
Tara, because it's anytime you're in leadership in anything. My dad used to say, "You'll never have arrows in your ass if you're not in the lead," but it gets old. And you guys have been selfless and serving the
Right,
community.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. I mean, I'm sure there were many friendships and many judgments, and you did the best you could for the good of the whole. And that, like you said earlier, it's not easy when you have to take some land to build the park. And I mean, there's two sides to every coin. And to do that for so many years and to create something as powerful as the PUD from your family in the beginning, and 3 or 4 terms as a PUD commissioner. It's
I
crazy.
did lose friends over that PUD position
I'll bet.
because of the Wenatchee world mainly,
Yeah.
the press.
Um,
And the press couldn't control what we were doing, and a lot of what we were doing you do in closed session,
Yeah.
and you can't talk about it.
right.
And we were accused of trying to sell the PUD to California and all kinds of different things that were
I
just
remember that story.
total rubbish.
You should have had Facebook back then.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Right.
Be really accurate.
The trolls are coming to get you.
That's one reason why we started recording our meetings
Yeah, there you go.
and putting them on the internet so that we could show that what was being said.
Transparency, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to your comment earlier, I hope that now your kids in hindsight can realize.
No, they don't. They still say,
Okay, well, someday I hope that they will realize
me too.
what you guys were doing, both of you,
Yeah, 'cause-
and the why of it all, because
Yeah.
Yeah, I
we
mean,
all are doing the best
I
that we
wouldn't
can.
have gotten the jobs I got if somebody hadn't noticed me. I mean, that was just a given.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So-
Stephanie said she said, I said, we're going to do this today. And she said, "Sweet, I look forward to hearing that." Love all the podcasts. It's a great idea came up with. So she's excited to see you. Said that you haven't
Good.
talked in a while, but
That's
she's
good.
Yeah. She wanted to make sure we got a hold of you, and I said, "I already did."
Oh, that's I appreciate that, and more than she will ever admit to,
Yeah.
because my heart is broken, and
Well, maybe this is a way to get
Yes.
back together.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, guys, we've been talking for an hour and a half.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And you were gonna leave. Now,
Yeah.
are you glad you stayed? I sure am.
I sure am.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you guys have fun? Did you like it?
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
you never watched an episode, but you've been on it, so.
Now you're old pros.
You're old
Yep.
pros. You're
Now
the
you're old
veterans.
pros.
Well, and I'm going to second what Tara said. The selflessness that you guys have lived your life, and
Did we take somebody else's time?
No.
no, no. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done as well, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
it's been really great to get to know both of you.
All right, till next time.
Till next time.
All right. bet.